August 26, 2025. The village of Boissy-la-Rivière in the French region of Essonne is a quiet place. Fields stretch into the horizon and the town seems far removed from the political storms of Paris. Yet today, this small village has become the stage for a moment of national significance. Here at the summer gathering of the CFDT trade union, French Prime Minister François Bayrou delivers a warning that reverberates far beyond the walls of the hall where he speaks. He tells lawmakers, and by extension, the French people, that the country stands on the edge of a precipice. The National Assembly, he declares, has just 13 days to make a choice: stand on the side of chaos or stand on the side of conscience and responsibility. For Bayrou, this is not just a political debate, it is a test of whether France can govern itself with clarity and accountability, or whether it will drift into disorder. Bayrou's words are stark. They are carefully chosen, designed not only to persuade his allies, but to force his opponents into a corner. He reminds everyone that he has taken the risk of holding representatives, particularly those in the National Assembly, accountable for their responsibilities. He calls it a moment of truth, a time when clarity can no longer be avoided. In his speech, the Prime Minister highlights what he sees as two opposing paths. On one side stand those who accept the duty of responsibility, who believe in democratic compromise, reformist pragmatism, and the shared values of social democracy. On the other side, however, he sees lawmakers who refuse clarity, choosing instead to be what he calls the architects of chaos. This, he insists, is the very opposite of the spirit of responsibility that defines the CFDT and its commitment to social dialogue. Bayrou's warning does not stop there. He declares that over the next 13 days, it will not only be politicians who decide the outcome. The French people, he insists, will influence their representatives. Citizens will push, pressure, and demand answers from those they elected. And when the Assembly finally votes, lawmakers will have to declare openly and unambiguously which side they are on, the side of chaos or the side of conscience and responsibility. The moment is tense. The audience, union activists, workers, and social democrats listen closely. Many nod in approval, others applaud. The CFDT has long been one of France's most reform-minded unions, often supporting pragmatic compromises in the name of social progress. Bayrou, by choosing this stage, has tied his government's survival to the values embodied in this movement. For the Prime Minister, this gathering is more than a rally. It is a declaration of battle lines. The countdown of 13 days has begun. But what exactly is at stake in these 13 days? At the heart of the crisis lies a series of crucial votes in the National Assembly. These votes concern Bayrou's package of economic and social reforms, measures designed to address mounting debt, to modernise labour laws, and to keep France competitive in an unstable global economy. For Bayrou, these reforms are necessary, even urgent. Without them, he warns, France risks drifting into financial peril. Just days earlier, he had described the nation's debt as an immediate danger, something so grave that it must be confronted today, not tomorrow. In his words, over-indebtedness is a threat that can darken the future and worsen the present. In this sense, his warning about chaos is not metaphorical. It is tied directly to the survival of the French economy itself. The opposition, however, sees things differently. Some accuse Bayrou of using fear as a political weapon, of painting disagreement as chaos in order to silence criticism. Left-wing opponents argue that his reforms place too much burden on workers and ordinary families. Right-wing critics, meanwhile, accuse him of lacking the boldness needed to confront deeper structural issues. For them, Bayrou's ultimatum is not a moment of truth, but a tactic of desperation. Inside the Assembly, the numbers are fragile. Bayrou's government holds only a slim majority, and defections could easily tip the balance. By framing the debate as a choice between chaos and responsibility, Bayrou hopes to rally wavering deputies, warning them that failure to support the government would be remembered not as an act of conscience, but as a betrayal of the nation's stability. The stakes are not only political, but personal. At 72 years old, Bayrou has spent decades in French politics. A former minister, a long-time centrist and now prime minister, he has often been described as a man of compromise, but today compromise is not the word he uses. Instead, he demands clarity. He speaks less like a negotiator and more like a statesman facing down a national crisis. This shift in tone is deliberate. Bayrou understands that France is weary. The past decade has brought waves of social unrest, from the Yellow Vest protests to strikes over pensions. The public has grown sceptical of government promises. By using strong language, chaos versus responsibility, Bayrou seeks to cut through cynicism to show that the stakes are too high for hesitation, yet the risk is immense. If the Assembly rejects his reforms, Bayrou will not only face a parliamentary defeat, his authority and possibly his government itself could collapse. In the charged atmosphere of French politics, such a defeat could even open the door to a vote of no confidence or new elections. In this way, Bayrou has staked his leadership on the outcome of the next 13 days. For the CFDT audience, the message resonates. Bayrou presents himself as a defender of their values: social dialogue, democratic responsibility, reformist spirit. But for the broader French public, the message is more complex. Many citizens struggling with rising costs of living wonder whether responsibility means more sacrifices for them. Others, concerned about France's global standing, believe reforms are unavoidable. In living rooms and cafes across the country, the debate mirrors the one Bayrou has set in motion: conscience or chaos, reform or paralysis. As the speech ends, the applause is loud but not unanimous. Some delegates whisper, aware of the political gamble unfolding. Outside, journalists prepare their reports, knowing Bayrou's words will dominate the headlines. The phrase chaos or responsibility will be repeated across television screens, radio broadcasts and social media feeds. The countdown, now fixed in the public mind, creates a sense of urgency. Every day brings the Assembly closer to the decisive vote. Every speech, every interview, every manoeuvre in the corridors of Parliament will be judged against the clock ticking down from 13 days. Bayrou's challenge, however, is not only to persuade lawmakers, it is also to persuade the public that his reforms represent responsibility rather than chaos. For in the end, lawmakers are not immune to public pressure. The Prime Minister knows that if citizens demand responsibility, deputies will have little choice but to heed their call. Yet the opposition is equally aware of this dynamic. Already, rival parties prepare their counter-narratives. They argue that Bayrou's responsibility is nothing more than austerity dressed in reformist language. They claim that real responsibility means protecting workers, not burdening them with more economic hardship. In this way, the battle over words, chaos, conscience, responsibility becomes just as important as the battle over policies. In the coming days, the streets of Paris may once again become a barometer of public mood. Protesters could gather, unions could march, and opposition rallies could denounce Bayrou's ultimatum. For every citizen who sees responsibility in his reforms, there may be another who sees chaos in their consequences. And so the 13 days ahead are not only a parliamentary drama, but a national referendum of sorts, an informal vote in the hearts and minds of the French people. François Bayrou has taken the stage in a small village, but his words now travel far beyond it. They echo in the corridors of power, in the offices of deputies, and in the conversations of citizens. They pose a stark question that cannot be avoided. Will France choose chaos or will it choose responsibility? The answer, he insists, will define not only his government but the future of the nation itself. The countdown has begun. I have taken the risk of holding French representatives, particularly those in the National Assembly, accountable for their responsibilities. This is a moment of clarity, a moment of truth. I can see those who, when faced with this demand for clarity, choose to be the architects of chaos. That is the opposite of the spirit of responsibility and even co-responsibility that defines the democratic, social, pragmatic, reformist movement that unites CFDT activists and all those who believe in social democracy. It is the very opposite of what they want. And so over the next 13 days, the French people will decide, will influence their representatives so that they choose and declare whether they stand on the side of chaos or on the side of conscience and responsibility.